Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new poem. It's called A Photograph by Shirley Towson. Today, we'll be going through the line by line explanation of this poem by Deepshika ma'am. Moving on. This poem consists of 19 lines in total. Since they are not divided into equal number of lines or stanzas, I'll request all of you to number these lines and then follow them number wise as we move through the explanation. Moving on.
A photograph. Before we begin, I would like the students to take their textbooks in front of them so that we have a better follow up. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. In these lines, the poet describes looking through a photo album, the pages of which seem to be made of cardboard. She is looking at one picture in particular. The girl in the middle is the poet's mother, and the poet speculates that her mother must have been around 12 years old when the picture was taken. The other two girls are two of her mother's cousins. Each of the cousins is holding on to one of the older girl's hand for support. The picture has been taken on a day when the three girls had gone paddling at the beach. Lines 5 to 9. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera, a sweet face my mother's that was before I was born, and the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terrible transient feet. In these lines, the poet further describes the conditions in which the photograph of her mother and her mother's cousins was taken. The poet says that the mother's uncle had been the one to take the photograph. He had asked the three girls to pose for him, and so they had. They had left their wet hair open, and their hair was obscuring part of their faces. Through the film of the hair covering their faces, one could see that they were smiling into the camera. The poet finds over the years the sea seemed to have changed less, which washed their feet. The immortality of nature is contrasted with the temporariness of human life.
Ma'am, what do you mean by the immortality of nature is contrasted by the temporariness or the transience of human life?
See the line number 7. The sea appears to have changed less. So the sea remains. However, the mother has grown older, contrasting mother with the sea and terrible transient feet. I'll be explaining further the poetic devices in my later videos about the feet is here taken as the entire human being. So that is what we mean the human life is temporary as contrasted to nature. Line 10 to 13. Some 20-30 years later, she'd laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she'd say, and see how they look, how they dressed us for the beach, the sea holiday. In these lines, the poet stops looking at the photograph and recalls what her mother used to say about the photograph. The poet isn't sure whether she was 20 years or the photograph was taken or 30 years after, but she remembers her mother telling her to look at how the cousins called Betty and Dolly looked at that young age. The poet's mother also asked her to look at how their parents had dressed them up for a visit to the beach. Perhaps the plan to take the photograph had been there all along. Lines 14 to 15. I would like you to underline these lines. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter, both wry with the labored ease of loss. In these lines, the poet says that her mother used to consider the photograph as an inroad to the past that she had left behind. On the other hand, the poet herself considered the memory of her mother laughing as a relic of the past that she had missed every day. In both cases, the memories of the past made the two women contemplating them feel disappointed as they tried hard to come to terms with what they had lost. Lines 16 to 19. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of this circumstance there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. In these lines, the poet says that her mother had been dead for the past 12 years, that is, the same number of years that was the age of her mother in the photograph she had been looking at. The poet is able to think of her mother's death, but she has no words with which to explain how that death has affected her. The fact that death has silenced her mother has also left her speechless. Its silence silences.
That will be all for this video. We'll be continuing in part 2 where we'll discuss the theme, the poetic devices, and the tone of the poem. So hang in there. Thank you.